I want to use this video now as an opportunity to share my thoughts and opinions behind the incredibly controversial Lukaku Sky Italia interview now that the dust has started to settle a tiny bit now. In today's video, I want to address the main controversies from the interview, and I'm going to discuss Lukaku's words on Thomas Tuchel, Lukaku wanting a return back to Inter Milan, why he left Inter Milan, what his original career plan was as well, why he told Martinez to remain at Inter Milan, and his current unhappiness in London too. I'll give my honest thoughts and opinions, hope you guys enjoy, and without wasting no more time, to kick things off, I guess this whole interview was an opportunity for Lukaku to appease himself back to Inter Milan fans. Of course, during the summer he left in incredibly controversial fashion. Inter Milan fans were incredibly upset and angry after he left them. However, his appeasement came at the detriment of Chelsea fans. Now I can understand and respect that Lukaku had always one day envisioned having an interview like this to just explain himself back to Inter Milan fans. As Lukaku said before, he has a very soft spot for them. They were so good to him, his family, they really welcomed him in the city as well. However, I can't help but feel, what outcome did you really expect to get? Did you really imagine that Inter Milan fans were suddenly going to just understand all the nuance behind the deal in which he left them? Yeah, you had your reasons, but fan reasoning is steeped in loyalty. That might seem old school, yet it's that same loyalty which fuels fans' love for their football clubs. As I said, this interview was solely for Inter Milan fans. However, this was forever going to be a lose-lose situation for you. Now let's address the first controversy, and they were Lukaku's words on Thomas Tuchel. Now funny enough, when this interview did kick off, all the journalists asked Lukaku was how he was doing, how he was feeling, and I guess he got a lot more than he bargained for with Lukaku's answer. Lukaku mentioned that ever since Inter Milan helped him redo his entire nutritional plan, he feels very good. However, he did stress that he did feel a bit unhappy currently at Chelsea. He mentioned that Thomas Tuchel is using a different module than what was being used at Inter Milan, and of course that even though it's not really ideal for him, he's going to remain a professional, he's going to keep on grafting, keep on working hard, and he won't give up. Now I guess to give my thoughts and opinions behind it, at the time, all of us in the fan base were questioning and wondering why we weren't seeing the best of Lukaku. To go back to some quotes that came from Antonio Conte before he signed for Tottenham, he mentioned that he felt like Lukaku was not being used in his best way. Conte said that Lukaku is a type of striker that can offer a lot more than how he was being used. And subsequently, we fast forward a few weeks later, where actually this interview was released 3 weeks prior before. After that post-match interview against Aston Villa in which Lukaku won man of the match, he did say afterwards that he and Tuchel had been having discussions about his use. Lukaku stressed that he is a multi-dimensional striker who can offer a lot more than how he was currently being used by the team. And I guess it's only natural behind the scenes that, coaches are going to liaise with their players to, speak to them and find out ways they can get the very best out of them. So I guess there clearly had been some positives that came out prior to this. However, what was obviously abundantly clear is that after Tuchel had assumed that him and Lukaku were, just really having a good relationship, Lukaku did not mention at all that he did an interview with Sky Italia, which he still kept secret until it came out a few days ago. In my opinion, that's not great. And even though this criticism that he had originally 3 weeks prior has been addressed now, of course, you undermine the manager by not giving him a heads up in advance. We now discuss Lukaku saying that he wants to stay at Inter Milan. Lukaku mentioned that if Inter Milan had given him the contract extension he wanted, which hurt him at the time for not being able to get that, he would have committed his future to Inter Milan. Now of course we know that Inter had tons of financial difficulties, hence why every single one of their players was up for sale, depending if the price was right. Lukaku said that originally he had a plan to move all his family to Milan to look after them as well too, and I guess, during this stage of a player's career, when they are in their primes, this is the only time that they can command the ultimate maximum amount of money and value in their contracts, which is something that Inter Milan just cannot financially afford. Continuing on though, Lukaku did say that after his first season at Inter Milan, Man City came in with an astronomical offer, an offer that is far exceeding the current 345k per week wages we are currently paying Lukaku. He said that he turned that down straight away because after his first season at Inter, he felt it was not the right time to leave them as they were building something special, and clearly the Scudetto was not too far from their sights. He said originally His career plan was to eventually one day sign for a Bayern Munich, a Real Madrid, a Barcelona, stay at Inter Milan for a few seasons, win a few things there, before moving on to play for one of the big established clubs. For me, I'll give my thoughts and opinions, and I think in this stage of the interview, got to keep things real. He's clearly discussing how that first season at Inter Milan was. I think it was quite obvious that we just weren't in the picture at that time, and I think if we go back through the timeline, we signed Lukaku as a teenager, it didn't work out for him, we sent him to Everton, we then nearly come close to signing him from Everton as Antonio Conte instructed us to sign him. However, the finances couldn't be agreed with his agent at the time, Raiola, who then moved him to Manchester United, which then meant that Lukaku eventually got rid of Raiola, signed up with Rock Nation, and I'm guessing the logic was that he just assumed that he would never have the chance again to sign for us. However, once the summer did approach, once all of Europe knew that we were looking to sign a big name striker, and once Lukaku knew that we were interested in signing him, during the Euros, he also mentioned to the Inter Milan fans that he was still committed to staying at Inter Milan, which is one of the things that they're still holding on to for justifiable reasons. At the time, and I was reporting this to you guys, Haaland was the #1 guy this summer. We were still holding talks with Lukaku. However, Lukaku was still slightly a bit indifferent because of course he has been hurt by the club a few times before when it's coming to try to sign for us. So what the club had to do to really show their commitment to him. Normally the strategy that is used in football for any club to show commitments for a player they are desperate to sign was to make Lukaku our record signing in our history and also give him wages that eclipse every single other player in the history of this club, and thus having the opportunity to sign back for us, have ambitions of lifting the Premier League title with a club that he supported since a kid due to his idol in Didier Drogba. On top of the finances being so out of this world that his agent naturally would never tell him to turn that down, with Inter Milan of course needing money at the same time too, it's quite clear and obvious why this deal was eventually done in the end. Now addressing the next controversy, which was Lukaku stating that he is currently unhappy in London. For me, there wasn't enough context for me to really understand the root issues behind why he is unhappy in London. I can just use a few hunches based on the small reports we've gotten over the past few weeks and months, and that's the fact that I guess that he and his family have not fully settled yet in London. We know that of course Lukaku picked up COVID as well, which meant that he had to isolate away from his family. We found out afterwards that meant that he spent Christmas by himself as well, and I guess I could see why maybe he's saying he's unhappy in London. Which now brings up the next controversial point, and that's Lukaku stating that he wants to return back to Inter Milan during his prime. Of course, this was hugely controversial after just securing a big money move to sign for us. If fans are hearing that you're still committed to your former club, your former flame, I guess they're not going to take to that reaction very well. I'm still trying to understand why Lukaku said some of these things. You can't please your former club and your new club at the same time. At the same time, I understand the honesty. I think the reality is though is that once Lukaku's contract does expire with us in the next 4 to 5 years, he's going to be around 33 years old. And as we're seeing in Serie A, looking at his replacement at Inter Milan in Dzeko, who's 35, about to be 36 years old. That is a league where players past the mid-30s can still have long-term careers. Or the advances in sports science as well too. I think that it's quite conniving's strong words, but he knew what he was saying by stressing in his prime. He's not going to say that when I'm close to retirement I want to come back to Inter Milan. That's going to piss off Inter Milan fans even more. However, they do come across as highly insensitive comments towards Chelsea fans. His agent in Pastorello said before the interview came out that Lukaku one day would like to return back to Milan. However, to be this frank and open immediately after signing for us maybe wasn't the best strategy and the best choice of words to use at this point in time. And to move on to one of the final controversies, and they were Lukaku's comments surrounding Lautaro Martinez. As when Lukaku was asked whether he would like to play again with Lautaro Martinez, he said that he wants Martinez to remain at Inter Milan because one day he wants to come back and play with him again. Now, of course, remember this is a pro-Inter Milan interview. This was for Inter Milan fans, hence why it was done in London in Italian, because this was not meant for us. Maybe this is why Lukaku felt that he didn't have to explain himself to anyone because this wasn't meant for us. But in the modern world, with how fans react, with how quickly news gets shared as well, and with how desperate the media is to get clicks of any kind, your words, as Tuchel said, will be taken out of context and they are going to be misconstrued. For me, I think it's quite obvious though. I think that, of course, he's not going to tell Inter Milan fans, listen, I want Martinez to leave. I want him to sign for me at Chelsea Football Club where my friendship with him can continue to grow. And of course, where he can allow me to perform even better at the new club I'm at, because that would defeat the entire point of why he agreed to this interview and arranged and planned it to begin with. Of course, questions like this from journalists are forever going to put you in the mud. They're lose-lose. You're not going to win from them. You can't tell Inter Milan fans, yes, Martinez leave, and at the same time, if you tell them that I want to come back to play with him, you're going to put yourself at the mercy of Chelsea fans. However, when he speaks about one day, that one day clearly is not going to be next season. I think we have to be a bit realistic now. We don't even allow players to leave for 2 million less than the valuation we want if their fees can't be amortized in the accounting books. Of course, we're not going to take a significant loss on close to 100 million we invested in. We're not going to loan him out when he's basically earning 350k per week as well, because you're guaranteed you're paying over 50% of that loan wage if he does go. Lukaku clearly gave these answers to endear himself back to Inter Milan fans who clearly at this point in time don't want to forgive him. So for me, you guys, after the end of this entire controversy, I guess for the outro, it's interesting. I feel like this entire interview really brings up the conversation around honesty we expect from football players. Should the words that come from players' mouths solely appease us, our idolization and our fanaticism for our clubs? Or should honesty be encouraged more so we can get a deeper understanding of the guys we're watching on the football fields? Do we want to actually have that disconnect so the reality of a player doesn't affect the reality of how we see them when they're playing on the fields? In my opinion, I definitely embrace the real honesty that comes from these interviews, because for me, I'm a bit tired and bored of all these PR media trained answers in which players just act completely different to how they actually live in their real lives. We tend to only accept honesty once it involves players that have retired and are far removed from the game, where they can reveal all the stories about the past in which we never had any clue about during the time. Of course, my initial reaction during the entire stories being broken surrounding Lukaku was initial shock, and I was just completely dumbfounded, to be honest. So this is exactly why I wanted to take my time to not give reactionary takes, even though I know it would have given me a lot of views and a lot of traction. I'm always one of those people that will just speak my mind if I feel something, so I definitely appreciate that, and I definitely am receptive to that when I see that in others too. There's definitely a discussion and a debate surrounding whether Lukaku could be paying the price for being honest. However, in the video I just released, I also explained why, on the other hand, that lack of trust that he's given to his teammates by being so secretive is one of the reasons behind why he is also being punished as well too. You guys, I guess this story will continue to change. We're still waiting for the final verdict and outcome that will come from the club and what Lukaku will eventually have to say to, eventually address us Chelsea fans too. And once that does happen, I will have more thoughts and opinions for that. You guys, this is my take on the entire Lukaku situation. Interested to see everyone's thoughts and opinions in the comment section as well too. And on that note, I'm Nini FC, this is Blue Lines TV. I'll catch you guys later with some more videos. Cool.